I think there will always be those people who want to debate this movie to death. They will either champion it, they will hate it. In space, nobody, including David Fincher, can hear the Fox executive's phone call harassment at 4 a.m. about how to shoot your Alien movie. Welcome to the Flick Lab. I'm Karri, he's Henrik. Alien 3. So, yeah.
Yeah, we're finally landing on the good ones on this franchise. The beloved entries where we have basically... We have all the good cards in our hands. We have first-time feature filmmaking directors, we have bullying actresses, and we have actually one of the most notorious pre-production crunchers that are known or that, we have rumors of in this industry.
Yeah, so Rennie Harlin was slated to direct, but he left, and by that time the film was already looking for a release date in 1992 or 1991. And finally, David Fincher takes over in this project with only 5 weeks left to prep. It's a baptism by fire, like a typical introduction to Hollywood machinery for David Fincher, a rude awakening.
And well, like the nightmare starts already before, like Rennie Harlin. The direction's jobs were at least offered to Clive Barker, who just flat out refused from the day one. And never even considered making the movie. But like when it comes to lineup, Rennie Harlin was perhaps the second director that they were gunning for, and God knows how many as scriptwriter.
Well, a lot. As far as I know, there's been at least 10 writers involved with this film. So
in different stages of the production, yeah.
Yeah, this movie went through so many ideas that we don't have time for all of them, but there were iterations, there were scripts, and this film was supposed to be out in 1991. And then there was there's so many messes, but let's mention the teaser trailer that proclaimed that, quote, in 1992, we will discover on Earth, everyone can hear you scream. And they didn't go to Earth. Yeah, this was one of the Rennie Harlin darling ideas. This was because Eric Red penned an Alien 3 script set on Earth. So it's these two guys. I'm not sure who initiated this idea. Was it Red or was it Harlin? But anyhow.
Well, like to actually shine some light into their like where's the difference between Harlin and Red, and overall like the messy script writing pre-production mess or side of this production. Like you said, we don't have time to do a deep dive in every single script iteration that the Alien 3 had on its time, but if we go through like the most famous one, it starts with William Gibson, the cyberpunk author extraordinaire who basically created the whole subgenre of sci-fi, or at least he's credited for creating cyberpunk. He's the first one that the producers, and when talking about producers, I'm mainly talking about the main producers, David Tyler and Walter Hill, attached to write the script. And then Gibson makes a semi-actually respectable attempt on making an Alien script. He has space communists who accidentally get a hand on an alien egg that has been growing inside, like the biomass of Bishop. And from, the space communists trying to utilize and somehow benefit from their finding, well, the egg hatches, there's a facehugger, all hell breaks loose. And it wasn't actually too... Like, I've had the audio book of this script, and while it's not perhaps the most groundbreaking, most epic piece of sci-fi literature ever made, it's not actually half bad in my opinion. But Gibson is not chosen. But Garner and Hill feel that Gibson doesn't bring too much cyberpunk into his script, and where that stems from is basically just Gibson being too loyal to Geiler and Hill's own ideas, like what they would want in Alien 3. So it's kind of like they dig their own graves there. Then it comes to what you were talking about, that there are Harlin, Eric Red scripts. Now, as far as I know, Harlin, and we already talked about this in Aliens episode, but to quick recap, Harlin comes in, he has two ideas. The first one is that we go into Aliens' home planet and try to learn like what Alien is and why it is the way it is. And the second one would be, like you mentioned, the aliens' own planet Earth. Both of these scripts are being denied by Geiler and Hill. The first one because they feel that people are not interested in aliens' motives. And the second script idea because Geiler and Hill feel that people won't buy the tickets if aliens come to Earth. They feel that it has to be somewhere out there in space. And then, well, just like Gibson, with his script treatments, also Harlin starts to feel that Geiler and Hill are just basically like dragging their feet. The production is not going anywhere. So eventually frustrated, also Harlin leaves the production. And then from there we get into the second script you mentioned, the Eric script, which was not supposed to take place on planet Earth per se. Was supposed to take place on a biodome floating in space. But it did take notes from Harlin's script enough that you would have Earth-like environments inside of the biodome. And you would have things like, for example, motorbike gangs that would have formed inside of the biodome. You would have you would have this epic battle with bikers against aliens and what have you. So even though Red placed his script in space and in biodome, it still was like it's easy to see, like it's easy to memorize that Red script also was taking place on planet Earth because so many locations inside the biodome was Earth-like. And I guess that's stemming from like at this point Eric Red is like at least the third, if not like fourth or fifth scriptwriter attached to this project. So I'm guessing that Red's problem, or why Red's script was like it was because Red was trying to make a combined script that takes ideas from everywhere and also, listens whatever Geiler and Hill is telling him and just tries to cram it all together. So you have like Geiler and Hill want a alien script set in space. So now it's set in space. They want a closed location, so it's biodome. But then he takes notes from Harlin, and all of a sudden the biodome has really Earth-like environments and areas inside of it. It's kind of just like balloons from there.
Just quickly, you mentioned the William Gibson adaptation to the script, and yeah, we have Ripley in a coma for some amount of time. Michael Biehn and Lance Henriksen would have returned to their respective roles, and Space Marine Hicks and Bishop Android. Ripley and Newt would have been part of the experience. There's the audio drama available on Audible. I haven't listened to it yet, but it's on my extensive to-do list at some point. There's also, not to be outdone, there's the David Dewey penned version, Prison Planet version. Vince Ward and John Fasano, they implemented some ideas to this, of some kind of a wooden planet with a monastery in space.
Yeah, some type of yes. Vincent Ward's script is really interesting because it just kind of just doesn't make any sense. But it is some type of a religious monastery monk commune that lives on a wooden planet that floats in space. And that's where Ripley and Xenomorph end up in. And something notable also, like it's not just a wooden planet, but it also a planet without technology. Like the monks shun all the high tech and try to live as primitive as possible.
But this is anyway the birthplace of the whole Alien 3 final version. And you can see the elements there. Like people who kind of on the paper look like they can't defend themselves, but turn out alright in the end.
Well, I would say Alien 3 script as it in the end turned out. I see it kind of amalgamation of all these different script ideas floating there. Most definitely, you have the religious angle and also the low tech. Not no tech, but low tech locale from Vincent Ward's floating wood plant script. You have the prison theme from David Fincher, and I would say you also have something from Eric Red. Eric Red's biodome thing. In Red's script, the way how the plot is supposed to work out is that Marines board Selaco that is floating in space. They get ambushed by an unknown enemy and everyone dies, except there is a survivor. One surviving soldier survives and wakes in the floating biodome. He's somehow being saved there, but now he's suffering from amnesia and he can't remember like why he is there and what has happened. And as he researches the biodome, he starts to find another survivors from his old squad from Selaco incident. These survivors have been lobotomized, and he also starts to finally remember and piece together like what happened. And after that, he figures out that there's a secret experimentation going inside the biodome with, the facehuggers and the xenomorphs. The aliens, of course, once again break out, and from there it turns out into a more action-heavy fight for survival inside the biodome. And I would say that even though most of Eric Red's script was thrown out, I can actually see that the mystery nature of the final shooting script of Alien 3, which spends almost an hour with our main character trying to figure out that what is happening or that there is an alien in this film called Alien 3. Like I can see that element perhaps stems from, the whole mystery thing, the main character trying to piece together what is going on, Eric Red's script.
Okay, so this is super infamous, this film, for studio meddling. Like you had a nightmare pre-production, pre-stage, and then you actually start shooting it, and this new director, David Fincher, is there on the helm. The thing is that, in his own words anyway, he's putting, at least at some point, too much trust on like the voices around him, like the executives, the producers, Fox, who are trying to kind of steer the direction of this film too much. When they started shooting, they didn't even have a finished script. So that was one of the scare factors. And then an unknown guy, David Fincher, is here. But they get to shooting. And at some points, at least, there are reports from the actors as well that David Fincher was really harassed by Fox. And he had a lot of phone calls and a lot of discussions. And at some point, he was really kind of pushing back also, that get the fuck out of my yard. I'm trying to do a movie here. So that was the setup. And then the movie that finally came out, Alien 3 theatrical cut, it didn't receive praised reviews. It received actually a pretty cold reception. And that was the version that we were stuck with for a long time. And the studio meddling was kind of evident for anyone who saw the movie, I would say. And some things maybe worked. Some things that the studio wanted to do was to bring the action a little bit faster, make some more mystique about the different characters' motivations, but they also removed some of the character development insofar as there is any for some of these prisoner inmates.
Then some characters got way more development that they actually wanted. Or at least the character of Aaron got more development, but they dropped his IQ into 85.
Okay, let's talk about that. That the IQ shaming. It's kind of a weird aspect of this movie, don't you think? It likes to delve on the IQ aspect in several scenes, and you would have thought that someone like a very experienced, schooled, intelligent, educated lady like apparently now Lieutenant Ripley would be someone who would not go into this horse race, but she's like smiling and towards the apparently low IQ guy.
Well, that all actually, once again, takes us back into the production mess that was this film.
It's just a weird thing to concentrate on.
It's not in the end. Not when you take everything into account.
One thing that you could take into account, was it in Aliens? Yeah, it was in Aliens, when Ripley goes to the office room and then there are the representatives of the company and she's saying something in the effect of, have the IQs been dropping here while I was away? And the IQs seem to be like dropping. And you could make the argument that the IQs are dropping throughout these movies. Oh boy, resurrection, but let's not talk about that baby just yet.
Yeah, but also like it ties more into what happened behind the sets of this film. Like what we know is that like Alien 3 was a first of all it was a Frankenstein script, but from there when the production started, it slowly transformed into this almost court conspiracy-esque fighting inside the production, where basically every aspect of the production was somehow fighting with some other element. To actually quickly recap how badly this went, and from here, I have to like piecing together exactly what happened in Alien 3. Behind the scenes, it's a nightmarish task. You have to read through so many onset accounts and diary markings. You have to go through interviews. You have to look at the behind the scenes documents. You have to read through behind the scenes reports, and basically there's so much material and so many hit pieces going around surrounding this film that it kind of becomes a daunting task to even try to form any kind of a chronological timeline, or like how this shit show in the end went out. And from that regard, even though like I have to give a shout out to YouTube channel Represent This, which made a magnificent job of taking all the sources and all the stories I managed to find, scraping them together and squeezing them into a chronological, understandable timeline. But to summarize how it would go like is that they take David Fincher, man who has never actually done a feature film, but has made name for himself as a music video and commercials director. They take him and they put him on the helms of Alien 3. Mostly because also Geiler and Hill, the producers themselves, don't really wanna... They are really hesitant to actually make Alien 3. In a way, they would really like the money, but they kind of feel that they don't want to do it. But then again, the Fox is on their asses, and is like forcing them, or at least that's what they say, heavily pushing them to make Alien 3. So finally they managed to, after they have had like 10 different scripts, and dropping out directors like Rennie Harlin, they managed to snatch completely fresh-faced film director David Fincher and strap him to make the film. Fincher is given a script that he hates. He thinks it's absolute garbage, and this is a script that actually is the Geiler Hill script, the official shooting script that has the names of the producers attached to it. So of course inside the production it's supposed to be kind of a big deal seeing how producers wrote it. But Fincher hates it. And Fincher has a personal assistant, Barbara Shocks. And Barbara actually makes an offhanded recommendation to Fincher that, send it to my husband, Rex Pickett, and get his opinion, like, can this be saved somehow? Fincher does this, sends the script to Pickett, who is really opinionated about the script. Pickett abolishes the script and states that Geiler and Hill are basically hacks. And even writes this on a letter that he sends to Fincher when he sends his notes about the script. He outright states in that letter that he thinks that Geiler and Hill are hacks. And this is something that actually, we have to circle back around later on when we look at the production mess of the film. But even though at this point, the production still goes forward. Fincher shows Pickett's comments to line producer Tim Cinnamon, who actually agrees with Pickett and thinks that Geiler and Hill are hacks indeed. And from there, Fincher is given the right to bring Pickett into the production to rework the script. And this is where the story is behind exactly how the script eventually transformed and transpired starts to shift. Pickett says that he couldn't really touch any of the major plot lines of the script, seeing how the script was penned by producers, but says that he had a major influence in giving more character to the one-dimensional prison inmates that existed in the producer scripts. Hill and Geiler, on the other hand, assess that, Pickett barely had any effect on the script whatsoever. But anyways, that the production finally can go ahead. At some point, something happens, and the line producer, Tim Cinnamon, is kicked off quietly from the production without any explanation like why or how. But Cinnamon being fired from the production, it pisses off Cinnamon, who decides to retaliate against Geiler and Hill, and actually takes copies of Pickett's letter to Fincher, where Pickett calls producers hacks, and spreads it all around the production and to every friend he has. Spreads like a fucking wildfire. At this point, Pickett and Barbara Shocks both expect that they are to be fired from the production as a retaliation tomorrow. But mysteriously, this never actually happens. Instead, Geiler and Hill, they never actually bring this up. At least at this point in time. And even though Geiler and Hill themselves, they are no longer actually interested in making Alien 3, they don't want to lose the movie and like the artistic hands completely to Fincher. So they start to actually fight against Fincher, who is trying to direct the film, and the way how they used to do this is by abusing a clause in Sigourney Weaver's contract with 20th Century Fox. There's a small clause in all of that paperwork which states that Geiler and Hill has to accept that the final script of the film or the film won't go forward. And if the film won't go forward, Sigourney Weaver can't act in it, and that could mean that 20th Century Fox is in breach of contract with Weaver. So Fox is kind of its hands are tied. It has to follow with what Hill and Geiler states. And now that Geiler and Hill have the control of the production over Fincher, they decide to finally retaliate against Pickett. So Fincher is in mid-shoot at this point. Hasn't heard anything from Geiler and Hill, the producers of the film. All of a sudden, Hill shows up at the location and demands that all copies of Pickett's script are to immediately being brought to Alien 3's office, collects as many scripts as humanly possible, and then starts to slowly shred them all to pieces. Destroys every single copy of the script that he manages to find, and then goes off and fires Pickett from the production, and also, his wife, Fincher's at the time personal assistant Barbara Shocks. Both are fired. And at this point, even though they have just destroyed the actual script that Fincher was trying to shoot, they still stress on that, that the shooting has to start and filming has to continue. So we now reach the point where Fincher is directing the film and they are shooting it, and every single day Hill and Geiler just fax new pages for Fincher. The script is basically being written as it goes along, and it's a complete nightmare. Sometimes it's new pages, sometimes it's new scenes, sometimes it's revisionings and reworkings of the previous scenes. It's an absolute mess. And on top of this, on the set, and this is where we actually get into the IQ shaming that you were talking about, brought up before. But as this all is going on, on the set, Sigourney Weaver starts to repeatedly bully Ralph Brown, who is the actor playing the warden assistant Aaron, also known as 84. The less than stellar intellectual character of the film. Weaver tries to get Brown downright kicked off the production. And Aaron is a character that has been envisioned to be a survivor of the Fury, whatever was its number, incident. In the actual script, Aaron is meant to survive. But Weaver, who for some reason just decides to hate Ralph Brown's guts. Brown himself has speculated that may be because Weaver felt insecure having had to shave her head for the film, and just decided to take her own insecurities on Brown. Perhaps that was the motive, perhaps not, who knows. But yeah, Weaver tries to get Brown off the film and tries to have his character killed on page 10. Brown fights back against this and actually manages to make a case, and eventually Geiler and Hill state to Brown that, okay, congratulations, your character only dies on page 96, but we have dropped your character's IQ into 85, and this is where, the dumb-ass warden, Aaron, steps into the story. And from that point onwards, the onset bullying of Brown by Weaver, it just kind of intensifies. Apparently, Brown is not the only actor who finds himself on Weaver's bad side. Huh. Apparently, Weaver was also clashing in with Charles Dance, who plays the
really?
Medical. Yeah. They are not huge reports from this fight, but in Brown's recollections of how the shooting went, he has this story that Weaver was just been bullying him on the set, asking questions like why Aaron's clothes are so clean when we all the rest of us has to dress up on dirty rags, and why Brown gets to have a clean shaved head, and making comments like that, and also downplaying Brown's acting, making remarks like, is that really the way how you are going to play this scene? Is that really how you listen to your character? Those types of remarks. So Brown has just gotten a whole earful from Weaver. And apparently, during this time, Lance comes to Brown and is like, yeah, she completely vampired you on that moment, and don't worry, she's also complete bitch to me. And apparently also Fincher sides with Brown during these fights. But the situation with Weaver and Brown is so bad that there reportedly is a scene where Brown's character Aaron is proposing a plan to Ripley. And Weaver just hates Brown so much that she just, like, Ripley is meant to be thinking that, okay, Aaron's plan is actually pretty cool and be on Aaron's side, but Weaver just can't show it on her face. She just can't stand Brown. It just seeps through her. Like, no matter, Fincher takes a reshot. Ripley once again looks at Brown with complete disgust on her face. Fincher takes a reshot. It appears that Ripley thinks that Aaron's plan is complete horseshit, even though that's not what is meant to happen in that scene. So Fincher takes a reshot. Eventually, Fincher takes like 93 reshots of that scene until Sigourney Weaver is physically so exhausted and so dazed that she accidentally drops her disgust towards Brown and actually finally gives a working performance of that scene. Fincher himself has later stated that had it not been his first film, had it known about the audio technical capacities at Pinewood Studios and what you can do with audio recordings, he actually would have just, he wouldn't have taken 93 reshots. He would just taken some of the lesser shots of the scene and just, have the audio markup being done to Weaver's line delivery, so that, make it artificially sound like Ripley is on Aaron's side in that moment. But
oh my gosh,
you're gonna do what you're gonna do.
It's really hard to imagine Sigourney Weaver doing this kind of bullying. Do we have any other examples from her career from something like this? I mean, I guess we should, do as best possible research on this before we put this out there in the ether.
I really haven't researched Sigourney Weaver's attitudes and actions on set outside of Alien 3.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a large part because, Alien 3 being the notorious shit show that it is actually one of the films where you have an ample of evidence, an ample of stories, like what happened. Unlike so many other productions.
Is it possible to earmark at least the source who went and said these accusations about Sigourney?
Absolutely. Just go ahead and check out Aaron Brown's own blog, where he recounts his experiences on set.
Wow, okay. So yeah, see, he's the, I suppose, only source for this. I haven't heard anything from Fincher about this.
Fincher himself has never stated anything about this matter. Then again, Fincher himself also, for the largest time, Fincher didn't really talk about Alien 3 at all.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Even today, he barely brings it up. Usually only talks about it quickly and sparingly when being asked about it. But Alien 3 has never been a film that Fincher is really that open about. And perhaps that also was something that saved Fincher's career inside Hollywood.
So I was just thinking that Aaron could be like a logical continuation to the character of, what's the other sort of moron character in Aliens, who takes the lead, and then Sigourney's character is like Ripley's going through the wall to save the rest of the Marines from the slaughterhouse. That guy. I think they're very, very similar in a way.
It was Lieutenant Gorman.
Yes, that one.
Yeah, played by William Hope.
Wow, well, I guess we went through basically all the main problems that we know of at the set and in the pre-production production. So there, dear listeners, and the major talking point to be done in this episode, in my opinion, is to discuss the assembly cut, or as it's kind of also known as the special edition. The differences between special edition and assembly cut, as far as I know, it's very minor. As far as I know, the only difference is that for special edition, for the DVD release, they got a bunch of actors back together to re-record some of the audio that wasn't salvageable in the original assembly cut, so it's hard to hear, and there used to be subtitles on the screen so that you could figure out what the heck they're saying. So that was fixed for special edition.
Okay, could be. I do know that I don't remember if it was assembly cut or if it was the special edition, but there is a noticeable amount of scenes that are lacking in the theatrical version of the film.
Yeah, when I compared the length of special edition and assembly cut, they were identical. So I was like, okay, I'm not gonna spend too much time on trying to watch the assembly cut if it's the same deal, really. But yeah, I think we should talk about the differences, because the theatrical cut, well, many people, I guess it's kind of a useless term, but some people do think that the theatrical cut is an absolute horror show, but then you have a special edition / assembly, which does correct some of those things, and at the same time, it's not David Fincher's original vision kind of thing. It's not. As far as I know, David Fincher they tried to coax David Fincher to do all these audio commentaries and kind of do his directing for all this leftover assembly cut material to put together the kind of the definitive version of Alien 3, insofar as you can put anything like that together from the material that he at points wasn't even willing to shoot, but had to put together something of a cohesive unit. I don't know. So it was put together without David Fincher's input, insofar as I'm aware. And then they tried to get it as close to the possible vision-ish thing that David Fincher had at the set. Again, when it comes to the whole vision thing, the things that they shot are the things that they shot. It's not possible to put any kind of... If you want to get at the definitive David Fincher vision thing, then you have to reshoot the whole fucking thing.
Essentially, yeah.
They had like the leftovers of different sets, or they had already completed a lot of sets with the different script version in mind, and then they had to kind of fit those already built sets for this final product. So it's like there's so many things gone wrong that. But special edition versus theatrical. On my part, I didn't really care for Alien 3 much until I got to see the special edition, because it really did put something more flesh around the meat. It really changed, at least partially, the game. This is a really hard movie to talk about, in a way, because you can see that there's like a sort of a... There's a kind of hidden partial, almost like a great movie inside this movie, which is also a mess.
But it's also a great movie.
Okay. And I will side with you. I enjoy Alien 3, actually. Alien Quadrilogy DVD set in 2003, that was finally when we were allowed to see this special edition of this film. I think assembly cut must have been already floating around by that point, obviously. Was it like the early DVD releases? I'm not even sure, but yeah, when people generally refer to the special edition cut, then they are talking about assembly cut more often than not. So this running time increased by a whopping 30 minutes, and it includes some takes and shots with alien effects that were necessary to add in. Like, these were effects that were put in 2003. I do remember seeing, Henrik, Alien 3 in the VHS times as a version where you had that, whatever you call it, stop motion, some kind of rod puppetry going on. It was really like, it looked like a stop motion, and it looked really not smooth like it is today. So, like, I'm pretty sure about this, that they did maintain the original puppets in the film, but they did a lot of digital fixes for those, especially in the later releases. For example, in the Blu-ray, you have one release that removes some of the, I believe, the green screen or something green that is surrounding some of these alien characters. They have removed those and kind of tried to fix the lighting, which was always a problem in these puppets for some reason, because at least most of the time, clearly the puppets were shot somewhere else than in the location. I'm not sure why exactly, because at the end of the day, they have a lot of fixed shots. I think like all the puppet shots are fixed shots, so you'd think you could actually make the puppet just be at the set right there, but seems like they didn't do it. Anyway, puppets, yeah, they are smooth today when you're watching them, and I think they look pretty cool. Any puppet thoughts? I think you'll love this kind of stop motion and things like this.
I do, and I absolutely hate the effects of Alien in this film.
You mean the ones that we are able to watch in special edition and the like?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, they basically, I can't remember how the puppet work was in the like the theatrical cut. But now having basically the Alien in its all post-processing splendor here on assembly and special edition cuts of the film, and oh boy, does it look like hokey as all hell.
Oh, okay.
Like it's like from completely different dimension. It's some I never actually been able to figure out what the problem is. Like, is it color grading, or is it still some type of like artificial digital elements surrounding the model of Alien, or what it actually is? But somehow it is like a creature from Dimension X, while the film itself just exists on planet Earth.
It's a weird one. It's the first Alien movie where you see a lot of shots of the alien just running around freely and nothing is kind of covered of the alien. You can just see the full alien moving in a shot, like running from one end of the frame to the other end. And yeah, like you mentioned, there's definitely the lighting problems. I really don't know myself either why that happens, but it's clear that they are elements shot separately from the location. For example, when the alien is running from the toxic waste room, that's one of the most hokey looking shots because the lighting is so way off. I don't know if it looks dramatically better in the latest 4K restoration. People are also complaining that the alien is made to look too dark and the film overall, but at the same time they are at least kind of hiding the problems with the alien better.
Yeah, in my opinion, that like the only alien shot that truly works in this film is basically the iconic and marketing used shot where there's the alien's head is what right next to Ripley's head when Ripley is in the infirmary.
Yeah, of course, that's
basically the shot from this movie that absolutely everyone knows.
Yeah. That's
and famously also the shot that Fincher was not allowed to make. Like once again to harken back into the production nightmare of this film, where Guy and Hill actually denied Fincher of making that shot, and Fincher basically had to go all guerrilla just to get it and shoot it.
Yeah, what was it, like 90 minutes of filming time secretly, and Fincher is like grabbing Sigourney Weaver and the camera. Hey, let's go. So sounds like there was some kind of synergy between these two guys. I don't know how much you can base on that whole Aaron evidence of there being a lot of hokey things going on. Maybe all of those things that Aaron was claiming happened after shooting that particular scene. Who knows? But as you said, it's like iconic.
Once again, Weaver didn't have problems with everyone on the set, just a handful of people.
With Fincher as well, right?
Not with Fincher.
Okay.
Or at least I haven't heard any stories about Weaver and Fincher.
But Fincher was agreeing with Aaron.
Yeah, and dance and so forth. If I remember correctly, or my understanding, based on Aaron's and others' testimonies about what happened on the set, is that Weaver came along with Fincher quite nice, and I do think that this is supported by behind the scenes photographs of Fincher and Weaver together, where you in my opinion you see a real compassion between the two of them, like that kind of a wartime comedy where they all both know that they are tied in a hectic shoot and they just have to squeeze through it. And just for the record, in Weaver's defense, I've heard that later on, I don't know how many years after Alien 3 this was, but I've understood that Weaver has apologized from Brown for her treatment of Brown on the set of Alien.
Okay.
And Brown, I've understood, has forgiven her. They still don't work together, or the phone lines have been pretty cold between the two following Alien 3, but apparently apologies have been made and access have been buried.
That's good. People mellow with age. They should bury the hatchet. But coming back to the differences between special edition and theatrical, well, I think I've heard, actually my notes say that in 2011 it was when Fox actually went out of their way to re-record dialogue for some parts of the original actors because they couldn't be restored. So maybe that's the point when those were added. But then, as we know, as far as I can remember, in the DVD quadrilogy released in 2003, it's called Special Edition already. But anyhow, so
yeah. Then again, on my end, I've always liked Alien 3, and I remember I had it on VHS, and back in those days, I do remember when I heard about the rumors about these left out scenes, and being the small kid I was back in those days. Of course, back in the day when you found the information circling around the internet, it sounded like hot shit, like, oh my god, all these amazing, oh my god, this film that I like it would be even better with these scenes added. And later on, having seen the special edition, and now having watched the assembly cut for today's session of the podcast, I don't know, man. I don't think they are that essential in the end. And I can actually kind of understand why they were cut from the theatrical version.
Yeah, let's dive in and talk about those differences.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think the opinions can go all over the place. First of all, in the theatrical cut, Dylan, you remember the scene between Dylan and Ripley in the cafeteria or canteen. There, the scene ends with Dylan's line, "So far, no temptation." Whereas in Dylan's special edition delivery ends at the whole, "Well, we're waiting for God to return." So, the theatrical leaves Dylan's character kind of shrouded more in mystery. We don't yet know if he's an ally or a foe, but it also kind of, I feel that it leaves Dylan looking like a villain and a creep, and that goes against every subsequent scene where he's in, and appears to have his moral values correctly aligned. So that's kind of like studio maybe trying a little bit too hard. Theatrical cut, I feel it makes it a little bit try hard, but then special edition, it leaves it more clear that this is at least some kind of a decent character apart from raping and killing women, or what was it?
Yeah, a rapist and a killer of women, yeah.
Yeah.
And most definitely, I do think that when it comes to, once again, I'm not saying that the extended version or the assembly cut are bad versions of the film,
Mm-hmm.
and nor am I necessarily saying that the theatrical release is a superior version of Alien 3, but I do think that the added stuff in extended and assembly are not as groundbreaking as people make it out to be. That the ones who benefit most from the added scenes are the other convicts on the planet. Like, for example, like you mentioned, Dylan, another person who benefits from this is Paul McCann's Golic, the one dumbass who, once they manage to like capture the xenomorph, lets it out. That person, he gets more characterization in the extended assembly cuts of the film. So yeah, the prisoner population actually gains stuff from the added scenes. At the same time, however, my counter argument for well, not against every single scene, but basically the scenes together as you know, the added minutes that the assembly cut and extended edition gain when all of the leftover material is once again put back into the film. I don't think that outside of the prisoner population, I don't think that the material is 100% necessary. Certainly, yeah, it is cool to actually see how the alien comes out, hatches from the ox. It's shot. David Fincher knows how to direct a shot, so it's shot in very music video-esque way. You have the blood splashing on the floor and stuff like that. That's a really great shot. I don't think that...
You mean the mingling between two scenes, like that, using the B-roll essentially as the ox?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or how, you know, how that scene is being presented in the extended and assembly cut.
Yeah. Regarding the whole ox versus the dog, well, yeah, ox is kind of like a silent arrival of the alien. Dog needs to struggle. That's a cool element in a way.
Yeah, and I kind of like the theatrical cut, which has the dog. It also has the line like, "What kind of animal would do this to a dog?" Which I understand the argument against that line, that it's too forced.
Yeah, I have a problem.
Yeah. I personally like that line.
Maybe makes it a little bit too obvious what we're dealing with here. Of course, we know what we're dealing with here. But...
Then again, but yeah, perhaps yes. Then again, I always have tied that line to the prison population. Like, that's question concerning the prison. Like, obviously, yeah. Like, once you are the smart audience member. You have walked into the movie called Alien 3, which is the third film in the Alien franchise. When that line gets dropped, of course you know what type of an animal would do that to a dog. Mm-hmm. But from character perspective, I always perceived that line as a question like, what type of an animal, as in what type of a prisoner, would actually do this to a dog?
I can appreciate that view. That makes a lot of sense. There's so many differences between these two versions that I don't want to go through all of them, it's not important, but yeah, funny moment with the airshaft scene, the first victim of the movie, well, apart from the ox. There's the reference to the Spike, the dog, in the assembly, and special edition cut. Like, even though Spike is nowhere in the movie, the dog, it's only in the theatrical cut. So, interesting. I think, like, the theatrical cut voiceovers somehow got pasted into the later special edition assembly cut, found their way there. They just maybe didn't notice that they maybe should change that. I don't know. I was watching the assembly cut, and I kind of remember, I recall thinking at that moment that, what is he talking about? Like, obviously it's kind of a doggy-ish name, but also considering we are in a prison population, that could be a name of an inmate. So I was thinking, is he seriously trying to look for his body, like a human, inside those vents or canals, whatever they are? And when he's clearly seeing something that is an animal, okay, say that it was a reference to a dog then, which it is. Well, how the fuck can he mistake that kind of a weird creature for a dog? It's silly. But the problem, it's not really a problem to have the Spike mentioned there. I think it's fine.
Yeah, and you know, that prisoners in that prisoner's defense, Ripley herself also mixes the xenomorph with a completely nothing like xenomorph looking drainage pipe. So basically nobody's eyesight is working in this film.
Yeah. And another kind of trivia part of that scene is that the guy was actually singing at the set a different song. It was it like a Metallica tune that the guy was singing originally?
I remember that it was like the song In Year 2525.
Yeah.
In the year is somewhere on. I don't know if that was the original, or if that's the song that they added later.
Yeah, they dubbed the guy to sing the In the Year.
Okay. So in that case, I don't actually know what was the original song that he was singing.
It was Metallica. I forgot which song, but yeah, carrying on.
Okay. But overall, I can see the decision to cut those scenes, and I do think that the biggest problem that perhaps you can get with, and this is not going to be a problem to all, and it's most definitely is not a problem for me, but I can see that this problem might emerge with audiences, so that the studio would want to avoid it, would be the fact that the film kind of drags in its first half.
Does it though? Somehow, every time I'm watching this, I kind of enjoy diving deeper into these characters. I can totally understand that this might not be the viewer's idea when he is in the theater, he or she, in 1992. They want to get to the action, whereas now, retrospectively, I'm kind of having fun with the little ideas that they had here for the development.
Well, I have the exact same experience, and that's why I wanted to emphasize that I don't have a problem with, even though I understand the studio side, and I was critical of the extended scenes or their importance to the film, I'm still standing behind, extended cut. But that is because I actually really like Fincher's style here and the vibe that he creates. And that's where I do think that the main difference between how you are going to approach or how you are going to perceive the theatrical versus extended / assembly cut actually emerges. Because in a way, when you look at it, when you look at the situation that the film presents to you as an audience member who follows this franchise, you're someone who has just bought a ticket into a movie called Alien 3, which is the third part in Alien franchise, and you've seen the previous Alien movies. So you know what's going to be about. You know the xenomorph, etc. So, and then you walk into a film where for the first 30 minutes, you actually don't see the alien at all. Not automatically necessarily a huge problem, but wasn't problem in the first film. But keep in mind that this is the third film in a franchise. You've already seen plenty of aliens. Mm-hmm. So now you have just spent 30 minutes to wait that you see your first alien, and that just quite quickly comes out of the aux. And at the same time, you yourself as a smart audience member, ever since the film starts, from the opening credits, you know what's up. The film tries to have a like a huge twist towards the end when it turns out that Ripley actually is carrying an alien. It was she who the face hugger hugged back at the board, etc., etc. But you, as a smart audience member, you most likely have already figured this one out. They confirmed that Newt is not carrying the alien, and Hicks is already dead. And from the three survivors, you have like only Ripley. You saw that the face hugger face hugged someone. Well, it's listen. You are not need a Mensa membership in order to piece this one together.
And
you know what's going on. So
pause you there. Just that kind of is one thing that irritates me in special edition. I think it's only in the special edition. Unfortunately, sorry for the audience, I have not been able to watch the theatrical cut because it's fucking nowhere. But Ripley's "I'm fine" scene in assembly cut / special, it's quite unnecessary because it was, as you said, it was already like you don't need Mensa papers to understand the concept here. I'm fine scene, which is where she's starting to cough, the coughing when they are brushing the floor.
Yeah, and from I'm similar minds with you, basically because you piece this together. But what that also means is that you are following for 45. It's not just 30 minutes until you first time see the alien here. It's also 45 minutes you are following Ripley as she tries to piece together like what's going on, and she tries to figure out, is there a film or is there an alien in this film called Alien 3? For audience member, you're 45 minutes ahead of the main character in this film. 2 hours if you also already, like, from the opening credits, you already piece together, like, who is carrying the alien embryo this time. Which, once again, it's not necessarily a problem. It's not a problem for me. It's not a problem for you. I would say it's not a problem for most people who really enjoy David Fincher stuff, because what you get is, with assembly and extended cuts, you get more David Fincher cinematography, you get more of the sets, you get more of the atmosphere, you get more of the vibes, and you also get some nice characterization. So it's not a problem to actually see it, but I can also see how those added minutes for a studio executive at Fox offices would be like, oh my god, the alien is not showing up. It's Alien 3. We're not seeing the bloody lizard. It's 40 minutes. Ripley still hasn't pieced together that there's a xenomorph in this alien film. And from that standpoint, I can actually, understand heavy cutting to be made into this film.
So many things are going on. There's the chaos with the script and all the problems we already talked about. But it's also Fincher who might be a little bit too smart. He is a very smart director that is trying to put together the pieces as best as he can. And he's trying to deliver something different as well. He doesn't want to repeat what Alien and Aliens already did in the hands of Scott and Cameron. And the studio executives are like, no, we want something more like Aliens, clearly. But I do enjoy these little moments. Ripley is more relaxed for a moment here. She's less occupied with the aliens at first. Like, she's taking her time to try to enjoy the moment, in a way, on the ugly damn colony. Taking some kind of a breather there, although still investigating if there would be like a quote-unquote cholera. Like, Ripley is she has gone through so much, and at this point she might be a little bit apathetic about who gives a shit if there's aliens or not. I'm just gonna take a moment to have a semi-romantic relationship here, and these moments I enjoy.
I did too. At the same time, however, it is also a film where Ripley is the one who gives the most shit. And this is perhaps a question more about how Ripley's character evolves throughout this franchise. Like in the first film, she is a fresh-faced truck driver who just has to survive the xenomorph. In the second one, she already knows like what the xenomorph is, and now it's like the marketing line went. This time it's war, and in Aliens, she spends most of the film trying to look after and take care of others. And now in Alien 3, her main focus, basically the only focus that she has, is to just kill the alien once and for all.
And I think still the character arc, Ripley makes sense here, because they bring this. I think the romantic part works, even though I think there were some scuffles about whether there should be any romantic part in the movie, etc. or not. I think the killing Ripley and having the alien inside Ripley contributes, makes this story make sense, and also like further emphasizing that everyone around her is dying, and the whole line where she's saying something like, you have been in my life for so long, I don't remember anything else. And that is one of the core parts, I think, of this thing. He's so sick of this shit. He just wanted to get it over with. In a way, Alien 3, the setup at first, it's very reminiscent to something like Aliens, where, she's been rescued and somebody picks her up somewhere in some colony or some spaceship, and you go from there. But Alien 3 has enough material for Ripley to work with, and I think they should have left it at here. They don't.
Then again, I'm not actually completely certain that they should have left it here.
Okay. Yeah, I guess we'll have more to say about that in the next one. But there's so much to this movie. Like I already said about that quote right there, I love the selflessness that is on display throughout the movie. Ripley and the cons, they have both lost a lot of things. Alien, it just keeps taking everything away from them. One talking point would be that, like, it's weird that the Fox is pushing for this prison colony, because you might have trouble emphasizing with the prisoner characters who aren't even so fleshed out in the theatrical cut. Why does it have to be a prison colony? Yeah, they don't have guns. They have like axe and some things. But like, could you emphasize with these characters? There is still kind of the whole Jesus stuff, and how they go to big lengths together through that Jesus stuff. I guess we need to talk about that a little bit more. I remember my father's ex, she really liked this movie. I couldn't understand why she thought that this was her favorite Alien movie. Like, come on, Aliens, Alien, man. But I would imagine that it's had something to do with the God stuff, because she's quite religious. So to me, I'm kind of torn about the God topic. You have on one hand that absurd thing that you might consider absurd. People would have all the space and tech, and they're just casually installing some kind of prison colonies on foreign planets around foreign stars and battle aliens, and still they decide that they have a religion. I believe in God. For me, that's interesting. But then you juxtapose it against everything. You have the piety on one hand, bringing also some kind of a themes of dramatic sequences and the alien B-rolls that we discussed. And I do enjoy that juxta of the dialogue. For example, quote, "For within each seed there's a promise of a flower," with the alien coming out of the oxen dog. That's sickening and beautiful at the same time. Then there's the whole sacrifice part. The religious sentiments tie into that. The guys are in the lead works, and they put up this whole human sacrifice thing. And you could argue that it also happens in Aliens and Alien, but Dylan does really heavily sacrifice himself, and he kind of proves his commitment to his faith this way. His morals, which at the end are sort of in the right place, and his leadership is established. But this is a really bloody fight to the end, Henrik. I would say more than parts 1 and 2. They have to sacrifice everything for the others. And it's done by the lowest of the low. These are not even your military guys. These are inmates. They save the humanity at the end of this film. And they settle their debt with God. And then Ripley jumps into her death, and with that whole, if you want to see it as a crucifix pose, I think that was meant as a crucifix pose, but it's a jump into the abyss. And then there is the potential for pondering the whole ethics here, Henrik. Like, would they have helped Ripley in the end, even though they have these not so ideal ideals? The movie, of course, makes the scientists very much to be the kind of ignorant villains here, but it kind of leaves you wondering about it.
Yeah, it kind of ties into the whole larger societal question about, well, can a prisoner or criminal be reformed back into the society? And can someone who has done something bad, like for example Dylan, if you take him for his word, who is a murderer and a rapist of women, can that person somehow leave that bad behind himself and somehow forge himself a new and better path? And in the end, Alien 3 argues that yes, that your criminal activity and something that you have done in the past does not completely define who you are. It, of course, partly makes you the person you are. None of these prison inmates here, none of them denies their past. They openly accept that they are who they are and they have done what they have done, especially in Charles Dance's doctor character, who still carries the guilt from the patients that he accidentally killed because while off duty he had gotten drunk. So it was basically an accidental, involuntary manslaughter that he has done. But he still carries that guilt. And also, like Dylan, you can kind of see that he states that he's a murderer and a rapist of women, but at the same time, the way how he behaves in the colony, he looks like a person who really wants to leave that side of him behind and be better and be more constructive.
Yeah. So how do you at the end feel about the characterization here? Like, you could also see that it's not so much about their fate that allows them to fight in the end, or it could be just the fear of shame of being called out that they're not joining their friends to fight the beast to the lead works, the crew pressure. Are these relatable people, and should they be? Does it matter?
To me, I personally, once again, a lot of questions to try to tackle all of them. When it comes to the religious aspect of these characters, I've always been two minds about, are they really a diehard religious people, or are they people who use religion in order to find salvation and some type of piety for themselves? Because that's also a function that religion can serve. You don't have to be like the Bible thumping hardcore Christian nutcase. Say that religious values and following religious guidelines like they do on this colony can also be a tool for yourself to try to kind of find a better way and find some type of inner peace. And that's always how I've taken that that the prisoners in Alien 3 approach religion. It's a question mark exactly how religious individual inmate in this colony is, but as a group, I do think that they are perhaps semi-religious, they are somewhat monastic order, yes, but at the same time they are that because they want to find some type of a inner way to be better people, to be better men, and to leave the bad in their past behind. And through that, I do actually think that mostly these characters actually are really relatable, to a point where I repeatedly, every single time I watch this film, I do hope that these characters would survive. Especially like the big name inmates here, like Dylan and Clemens, and people like Morse.
That reminds me of some of the... I think it's also just in the special edition assembly cut, where Ripley is about to... Is it after the explosion when she's trying to help a bunch of the prisoners and then realizes that, oh, these are the prisoners that just tried to rape me an hour ago. There's that look in her eyes, but then she carries on anyway. I like those kind of morally interesting situations.
Yeah. And then again, I have to name that Golik is a goddamn idiot. And good riddance to that dumbass.
Yeah.
So I side with all of the prisoners, except the rapists and Golik.
Alien 3 work print really quickly. I'm gonna run through that. It's in some sense it's closer to the theatrical cut. Like it does have the dog, and the prisoner in the shaft is singing the Metallica thing instead of 2525. There are a few dialogue changes. Sometimes it's really hard to hear the dialogue because it's sometimes the original audio from the set, and there's a lot of like the special effects noise and things like that. But yeah, there's this one line from Ripley, "So fuck everybody else," and Dylan replies, "Yeah, fuck them," instead of the what I think is in the special edition, which is "No, fuck them," which is referring to the company obviously. And like this, "Yeah, fuck them" is just like a universal thing. Yeah, fuck the rest of the civilization out there. We're just having this one ball to us, and we don't care about the rest. And not very religious feelings, in my opinion. And there's some extended material for the whole when the scientist and Lance Henriksen's character arrive at the lead works. Like the dumbass is saying that if she's alive, she's at the furnace. She's in the lead works with the beast. "Oh, mate, I tried to tell him." And the scientist guy in the whole white suit says, "Have you seen the beast?" "Yes, sir. Horrible. Unbelievable. She's got one inside her." And then Lance says with the deep voice that he has, "We know that." And then the idiot says something like, "You're gonna need a bigger case than that." But it was really hard to hear, so I'm not sure if he's talking about a case or something else.
I took it that it was meant to be a cage, yeah.
A cage. Okay, yeah. I couldn't even see what the heck he was holding.
Nobody can see what the hell he's holding, and the audio is pretty bad in that moment.
Help.
But that's been my take, that it's meant to be a cage, like because they need to somehow like carry the beast out of the Fury. They can just give it a bus ticket.
Good luck with that, indeed. Ripley, she's at the lead works and bothering the beast with the torch, still in the corridors. And she's shouting, "Kill me! Kill me!" I don't recall that being the special and the theatrical. Do you? "Kill me! Kill me!"
No. But then again, that's not something that I'm willing to put my head on the block.
Yeah.
For either.
There's also this discussion about the trailer and the lost shot where Ripley says, "For the last time," which is not restored in the assembly cut and special edition, but it is in this work print. And that's all it is. She says that for the last time, and then she Tarzan's wings to the other platform and they pour the lead. That's it. Bishop has some extended dialogue here, I think. Like, we wanna kill it. We know what you've been through. You've shown great courage.
Yeah, and I'm not 100% certain, but
Yeah.
was there also added dialogue concerning is Bishop android or is he not?
Oh, could be. I noticed that there's this much longer wait for the answer no before Ripley closes the gate on Lance and decides to jump to her death. And then, lastly, it's in the special edition, this whole now I get to be the mother. She utters that line to Dylan, but what she's actually mouthing seems to be now I get to be the mother of the year. But the last part of that sentence, it's so silent that it evidently is from some kind of assembly cut where they didn't have enough clean audio to rescue that last part of that dialogue, something like that. It's really weird. Mother of the year doesn't really make much sense to me. No, I guess it could work.
Well, seeing how she jumps in the lead works at the end, I would say that she was an abusive mother.
All right. Anything else about Alien 3?
No, I think we have had a long enough nightmare with this production nightmare.
So, very quickly, the performance pedestal. I will give this to Sigourney Weaver. Other than that, Lance Henriksen after all? Oh no, sorry, I go with Charles Dance.
Yeah, good choice. I go with Danny Webb, who plays the Robert Morse, the one surviving prisoner, who they escort out of the facility. In my opinion, makes a hell of a strong performance here and gives a lot of creates a strong character. Even though I like Dance or Dutton who played Dylan, he does not get to feel like one of the main characters.
Yeah.
He's a big sideline character, but still Webb's performance, in my opinion, like kind of takes that sideline character and brings it on the level with the mainline characters, and that's why I raise him on the pedestal here.
What worked?
For me, what works and what has always worked, the biggest thing here is the vibes and the atmosphere, which is being enhanced by the cinematography. Like Fincher is he like mentioned, his background is in music videos and commercials, and oh boy, can you see it here. Some may criticize this, all of this, and state that Alien 3 is a movie that looks more like a music video. And I can see that argument, I can see that criticism, I can understand that it may bother someone, but I personally, I like the music video-esque aesthetics that Fincher brings into the table. And I also like the themes here. Especially the theme of salvation with his prisoners. Like mentioned, I always hope, every time I look at the film, I hope that most of the prisoners would make it out of this ordeal. And that, of course, that is of course, a large part of that is the strong performances that this cast manages to deliver. But I also feel that that is also Fincher's themes. And the theme of salvation. You have great actors giving strong performances, revolving around the theme of salvation and finding a new path for yourself. And all of that just comes together in a sum that works magnificently.
Yeah, like every time I watch this movie, the more it raises in my ranking, or at least the score for this movie rises every time. Maybe with the older I get, the more I can appreciate the themes with the religion. Maybe as a kid, I was like a bit dismissive towards that kind of themes. Ooh, ugly religion stuff. Who cares? But yeah, it really It brings a little extra punch to the end. The passion for this film works as well. The passion is evident here, despite even the darkest times. There's more even darker times coming up in the next episode, but let's not talk about that yet. I really enjoyed the drama here. I enjoyed that Fincher tried to rescue this film, and it's way better than its reputation. So a lot of things worked. Close-up aliens worked as well. Sigourney Weaver's performance worked. What didn't work?
The story is a mess. It does not bother you. It doesn't really bother me all that much because I really enjoy the vibes and the atmosphere. So to me, kinda the fact that like Ripley takes 45 minutes to actually figure out that, oh hey god, there's an alien in this movie called Alien 3. It's not a huge issue for me because that's 45 minutes that I have a chance to kind of just linger in this world that Fincher is building. But at the same time, I do admit that the story is spotty. And one of the big questions that everybody always brings up, and also that like I ask every single time I see this film is like, so exactly where did all those facehuggers come from? Like seriously, mate? How did it exactly actually get into the cryo board without like waking up Ripley? Like what? And then one lands the ox. Like how exactly did this work? Not a major problem, but that is a minor hiccup for me. I also I just like praise the convicts, but goddamn, you have Golik in your film, and Golik obviously is a dumbass just so that you can have a dumbass, just so that you know you can just buy more minutes in this movie before they actually finally finish off the alien, because Golik's whole reason to exist is to make a dumbass decision and let the xenomorph escape. And I also think that like Weyland-Yutani is pretty unnecessary in this film. Like they show up on the like they are being mentioned throughout the movie. Weyland-Yutani supports the installation. Then they send a message to Weyland-Yutani. Weyland-Yutani reports back. Then they wait for Weyland-Yutani to arrive. But the actual Weyland-Yutani is for like 5 minutes at the very end of a film. You have a whole Lance Henriksen performance here, who actually doesn't do anything except gets hit in the head by a metal pipe. So it's kind of like you didn't need Weyland-Yutani. The story has a lot of these type of smaller things that in the end kind of damage it.
Okay, I didn't have a problem with the Weyland-Yutani. But it is interesting to note that there are two villains in this movie, the aliens and Weyland-Yutani. Maybe you could have just concentrated on the alien as the villain. But
I would have just concentrated on the alien as a villain. Then again, I must state that I do love Lance Henriksen's dialogue when he keeps just shouting that I'm not an android, I'm not an android.
Oof, that prosthetics on his ear. Oh god, Jesus.
Yeah, and that like the line itself is like it hammers home greatly how at this point like nobody can actually believe that Lance Henriksen isn't an android. Like Weyland-Yutani has managed to murk the waters between a synthetic and a human being so far that in everyday situation you would automatically think that a person you meet is a human. You wouldn't ever suspect that someone else would be an android, but in Alien's twisted universe, basically everybody just automatically thinks that you are an android, and you have to like desperately try to shout the other person that no, I'm a flesh and blood human being.
What didn't work? Well, the Alien 3's studio interference definitely didn't work. I think they should begin to realize that studio interference does not a good movie make. But to be fair, like the studio should provide some suggestions, but not to obsess over the process and manipulate people and give some phone calls in the middle of the night. Jesus Christ. I don't think the industry has learned a hell of a lot about this, except that if you get caught for these things, then you will be lambasted online, so you might want to be a little bit more careful about these leaks and things. Describe the film in one word. Yellow-green. That's starting to be a theme with this movie.
Yeah, devote from my end.
Yeah. Will this film survive the test of time?
My opinion is yes. It has gathered a lot more love, especially now that, the extended assembly cuts have come out, and I do think that like Alien 3 has had a noticeable kind of a redemption arc for itself, and I do think that like I kind of can see that the future will be even more brighter for Alien 3.
I think so too. Like Alien 3, I think there will always be those people who want to like debate this movie to death, and maybe via that route this movie will also limp on as kind of the movie that they will either champion it, they will hate it, or they think this has great stuff in it but didn't quite cross to the territory of awesome, something like that. So yeah, that's one way. And just the series in itself will also carry on the legacy. Maybe not so much in the next one, but complete the sentence. You really know you're watching Alien 3. When?
When you look at the number 85 and can't quite comprehend such of a large number.
You really know you're watching Alien 3 when the big motherfucker will eat you alive. True for all of this. Alright, dear listener, would you recommend Alien 3? Come and comment on our social media pages. Facebook is there, Twitter is there, and all the usual chats. So Henrik, how many sequels are there? How many more sequels are there? 12?
Well, the latest one is still just coming out.
Absolutely.
The teaser trailer has dropped.
Looking kind of forward to it, I have to say. Remains to be seen. Alright, hey, next episode, Alien Resurrection. I'll see you then, guys.
Until then. Golik is a goddamn idiot. And good riddance to that dumbass.